Hello and welcome back to Twist. That's This Week in Steam, where we talk about all things that happened in Steam this week, whether that's news, rumors, speculation, updates on new games, announcements, and all that good stuff. First off, rumors continue to swell about Microsoft releasing a new Xbox handheld later this year in collaboration with Asus. Some exciting new news on the next mainline entry of the Silent Hill series with Silent Hill F, given Konami did just have the Silent Hill transmission earlier this week. And finally, on the Steam Deck front, we did get a client update that had a variety of bug fixes, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And after we get done with news, we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the top picks from the Steam Spring Sale, which is now active from now until the 20th next week. And beyond the games that I personally recommend, there's also a few that you have recommended, thanks to your comments on our community post I put out the other day. But for now, let's go ahead and get the news out of the way and move on to that Spring Sale. And this first bit of news comes courtesy of Windows Central and by extension The Verge, and a variety of other outlets who have been reporting about Microsoft moving towards an Xbox handheld this year. However, it's not quite as simple as Xbox is making a Steam Deck competitor necessarily. According to reports, the company's working with Asus on a handheld codenamed Project Cannon, set to launch later this year. However, this is just one piece of a larger strategy to unify Windows and Xbox, blending the two ecosystems into a single platform. Project Cannon is an Asus manufactured handheld that will run a Windows-based Xbox interface, possibly through a certified hardware program. Meanwhile, Project Bayside is a new Xbox UX framework that should ensure a unified experience across handhelds, consoles, and PC. Essentially, Microsoft aims to create a universal Xbox PC game library, potentially allowing native Xbox games to run on Windows-based devices. And this push for Xbox to become more PC-like could be a response to Valve's own SteamOS, which continues to gain traction with manufacturers like Lenovo. With SteamOS growing and Xbox Game Pass already bridging PC and console gaming, Microsoft is positioning itself to compete not just with the PlayStation, but also with Valve's Steam Deck and the broader PC gaming market. The question is, will they actually pull this off? It's hard to say, but it does give me some pause hearing talk of Windows and Xbox unifying, only because I've had rough experiences with gaming handhelds running Windows, but I can definitely see the appeal from their perspective, given that Valve's accomplished so much with SteamOS, and if and when a device like this does manifest, what kind of an impact that's going to have on the handheld gaming space. Moving on to the foggy town of Silent Hill, we did get a new transmission from Konami this week, specifically focused on the next mainline entry for the series, Silent Hill F. And this was about a half-hour look at things like new trailer footage and interviews with the creators, and when it comes to the trailer, this included a look at the high school student you'll be taking control of, Hinako Shimizu, who has to survive after her town is consumed in a fog that ultimately produces a range of horrors with which you'll need to contend. And while the trailer did not give us a look at any gameplay just yet, it did sort of flesh out the 1960s setting and surrounding town, and give us a better idea of what to expect thematically from this next entry. And during that Q&A with the creators, they did give some really great insights into their creative process in building out an entirely new setting for Silent Hill that is far removed from the American town, and how they really wanted to get back to the series' Japanese horror roots. And despite the shift to a Japanese setting, they did confirm that series fans can expect to find a range of Easter eggs peppered throughout the experience. And the prevailing theme for Silent Hill F will be the terror in beauty. It's definitely a fascinating watch, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with the Silent Hill series moving forward. And while we don't have a release date just yet, they did reveal that this is coming to PS5, Xbox, Epic Game Store, Windows, and of course Steam, and you can wishlist it right now if you visit Steam's store page linked below. And next up, we did get a Steam Deck client update on March 10th with a ton of fixes. Now, I've linked the full patch notes in the description below, but some of the more interesting enhancements for the Steam Deck include Games Notes Anywhere, which lets you access and manage your game notes from a browser, making it easier to reference or update these from outside of the Steam Deck, which is functionality I probably don't use as often as I should, honestly. It also has some fixes for video capture, specifically for Monster Hunter Wilds, so if you've been struggling with video capture or streaming issues for this game, this update should resolve both of those issues. There's also some additional controller support for options for Fight Stick and niche controller users, plus better gyro handling for smoother aiming. And finally, they've added remote demo installs, which is a small but handy quality of life improvement that should let you queue up demos from your phone or browser to be installed on your deck. And again, there are just dozens of fixes included in this particular client update, so I've linked it below if you want to go check out the entire list. But now let's shift away from news to what, well, I guess technically is more news, but specifically within the realm of the Steam Spring Sale, because that is in full effect right now and will remain so until March 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific. And I mean, there are thousands of games on sale right now, so picking just 10 is a bit of a fool's errand given how widely people's tastes can vary, but here's a selection of 10 that caught my eye in particular. And right out of the gate, we do have Forza Horizon 5 that is 50% off right now at $29.99, and I saw at least a few comments on my spring sale wishlist video from a few weeks back where people were hoping this would go on sale, and so it has, and 50% off isn't so bad. These games are completely gorgeous and strike a great balance between realistic and arcade racing. Deck performance will be decent if you don't mind scaling the visuals back a little bit. I don't think you can get a flat 60 at any setting, but at low settings you should be able to comfortably get above 40, making it a pretty good candidate for a 40Hz 40 FPS lock. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and throw out 2016 Doom and Doom Eternal. 2016 Doom is 90% off right now at $1.99, and Doom Eternal is 75% off at $9.99. And I think this is an especially good time to jump back into the world of Doom right now, considering we've got Doom the Dark Ages coming out in May. Not to mention they run crazy well on the Steam Deck in my experience, and for 2016 Doom, that might be one of the best optimized games of this caliber that you can play on the deck, and for $1.99, it's definitely worth testing this out for yourself if you have not played any modern Doom games yet. Next up, we have the polar opposite of Doom's ultra-fast, butter-smooth movement, with the slower, more deliberately paced Death Stranding, which remains a personal favorite of mine. Death Stranding is 50% off at $19.99 instead of $39.99, and this game is an absolute vibe. Although to be fair, depending on how much you like Kojima's storytelling, this might not be to your tastes, and it does take about 6 hours of play before it really cracks open and gives Sam some fun new toys to mess around with, but if you stick it out, it's still one of my favorite games of all time, and now's a great time to tackle it considering we do have Death Stranding 2 coming out in June. Although if you're looking for a more fantastical open world steeped in super engaging RPG mechanics, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is 30% off at $48.99 instead of $69.99. And I guess this is a pretty decent discount, and while this is technically a verified title on the deck, I'd take that with a huge grain of salt because I'm guessing 20 to 30 FPS will be likely for a game that's this beefy, so you might be better served checking this out on a desktop instead. Speaking personally, I'm about 71% done with this game according to my PS5, and I've put in just under 95 hours so far. It's a beefy boy, so you'll definitely get your money's worth out of this one, although you'll certainly want to make sure you've played Final Fantasy VII Remake first, but sadly FF7 Remake Integrate is not on sale, but it's at least cheaper than when it launched at $39.99. Next up, if you're looking for some old school Gears of War-esque action, I would definitely recommend checking out Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, which is currently 35% off at $38.99 instead of $59.99. And I don't know a thing about Warhammer, but I sure do know a lot about third-person visceral shooters, and that's exactly what this game will give you. Story notwithstanding, I'm not at all sick of slicing through waves of enemies and doing incredible-looking finishers, although I am worried this might end up being some sort of gateway drug to Warhammer, but we'll see what happens. Deck performance is pretty good too for this one if you're cool with low settings. Even in the more open areas I was staying right near 60 FPS most of the time at a 1280 by 800 resolution, although it does take a little bit longer than I would have liked to load up on the deck initially. Still, if you like action games with characters where there is a distinct heft to the movement and every attack feels impactful, Space Marine 2 is more than worth a look. Next up, we have Immortals of Aveum at 85% off at $8.99 from $59.99, and this game represents a high fantasy first-person magic shooter of sorts. And you can download a demo for this one right now if you want to check it out for yourself, and I'm happy to report that if you do so, then all of your progress in that demo will carry over into the main game, which I thought was really nice. And really what intrigued me was the world building here, and the writing and the voice acting is surprisingly good. And I think this is one of those games that a lot of people just overlooked when it launched last year, but having spent a little bit of time with it recently, I can say it's definitely worth exploring. Maybe not on the Steam Deck since performance seemed a little bit dicey for me, but nonetheless I think this game is certainly worth $8.99 on sale. And speaking of, if you're looking for a Doom-esque experience that runs very well on the Steam Deck and has style for days, I do recommend checking out Anchorfoot, which is just super saturated first-person shooter fun with a great sense of humor. It's 40% off right now at $14.99 versus $24.99, and I already played and enjoyed the demo for this one, but in a nutshell, it's a first-person Hotline Miami. It's outrageously weird, again, it runs great on the Steam Deck, and is just a hyper-violent all-around good time. Next up, if you're looking for a big, beefy RPG experience from the likes of Atlas, Metaphor ReFantasio is 25% off at $52.49 instead of $69.99, which is not the deepest discount that I've seen on this game, but it is pretty amazing. Steam Deck performance is a little mixed, larger open portions struggled when I played it, but the more confined spaces worked really well. If you want a unique Atlas-flavored take on the fantasy RPG genre, with their amazing combat and slickly styled visuals, you really can't go wrong here. There is a demo available for this one, and that progress does carry over, which feels especially important for games like this that are just utterly massive. So if you're a fan of the Persona games and want to see how those combat mechanics translate to a high fantasy type story, this is definitely worth checking out, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed if that type of gameplay appeals to you. And now let's take a look at a few community recommendations, courtesy of you, because you actually recommended these games. And first up will be Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, courtesy of the Brick Separator 2020, who pointed out that it is 20% off right now at $55.99 versus $69.99. I have not played this game yet myself, despite being a Game Pass subscriber, so I will probably not take the leap here. But still, I know some people have been waiting for a discount on this, so thanks for the heads up on that, Brick Separator. Also, QLOM6025 pointed out that Nine Souls did actually go on sale. If you remember from a few weeks back, this is a game that I personally was looking forward to, and I'll almost certainly take the leap on it. But you can pick up this Metroidvania slash Souls-ish, I think, sort of game at 30% off for $20.99 instead of $29.99. And finally, a deep cut from the Quantic Dream realm. Gamersghoul did point out that Heavy Rain is 90% off right now at $1.99. I have not played this since the days of the PS3, and I don't think it's in my library yet, and if that's the case, I'll almost certainly add it in there, because why not? It's a nice little piece of gaming history, so thanks again for the heads up on that one, Gamersghoul. And before we close this out, I did want to recommend one game that is not technically on sale right now, but it is fairly cheap at $10, and I highly recommend it, and that would be Repo. Originally, I was going to do a much longer segment about this, but this video already has started to get a little bit lengthy for what's supposed to be a punchy sort of news style format, but just suffice it to say, the game's hilarious. I played it with friends and I'm playing it more tonight, I believe, and I definitely recommend it even if it is not on sale. And I think that's going to be it for this one. Obviously, the biggest news of the week is the Steam Spring Sale, and I do hope you find some great deals, but hey, let me know in the comments if there's anything particularly that you have already picked up or would recommend. Coming up on the channel, I'll be doing a breakdown of the games I personally grabbed during the sale next week, and I'm also working on a community games video based on your feedback, so stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for your time, have a tremendous day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.